Welcome everyone, it's Jamie from thedailyinfusion.com where you can learn how to reclaim your health, create wellness, and transform your life. Today we are joined by Alexandra Greenawalt, New York City-based fashion expert and personal stylist with an interesting wellness journey. Welcome Alex, thanks for joining me.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Jamie.
So can you share with us a little bit more about yourself and your wellness story?
Well, let's see, where to begin? It was really a long time ago. I felt like I was declining very slowly for years and years and years, but it was so subtle that I didn't notice it until it just got really bad energy-wise. And so I started looking for answers, looking for healers. I was always very health conscious. I always was conscious about eating well and exercise and spirituality and all that stuff. But anyway, so I fell down the rabbit hole of looking for answers. And it took many, many years to actually get a diagnosis. But I did get a diagnosis of chronic Lyme, a gluten allergy, adrenal fatigue, parasites, and some appendix stuff. Now, those diagnoses came in, different times. And really, it was the Lyme that was the most dramatic and scary, because when you start researching Lyme, the videos are pretty, scary.
Yeah. So how was your going from getting the diagnosis to kind of going through the research and teasing out exactly what was happening? Like, what was that process for you of empowering yourself and really learning about how you can take control over this?
Well, it was a very slow process, and really, because there were so many missteps, I think the most challenging part was finding the right people because I had so many misdiagnoses. I had people that said there's nothing wrong with you. I had people that said you need Cymbalta. But it was really in like finding the right person that was perseverant enough to be like, no, we're going to test you until we really get to the bottom of this. So having someone on and having family support.
Right. And then once you started your treatment, how did that transform your life and the way you knew it before to what it is today?
Well, I had to refashion. I had to almost redesign my life because I was at a standstill. I was pretty inert, pretty unable to function. I was sort of unable to work on a very regular basis, but as a freelance stylist, it was very easy to slip through the cracks because I was not expected at a job every day. So the nice thing is that I gave myself the gift of time, number one, time off, and then also I gave myself the sort of permission to redesign my life around what my new needs were, in terms of my energy level, my eating schedule, my medicine schedule. And I also did quite a number of healing vacations. They weren't really vacations because I wasn't really that active, but they were places where I would go where there was water, and it was, I was like, I can slow down here. I can get in the water twice a day. I can eat healthy food. I can take lots of naps. So I did a lot of sort of rejuvenating
Right.
methods. But it was really, yeah, so being able to redesign my life. And even today, I still, I still integrate my workout schedule. I still plug in my workout schedule, my favorite aqua class, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's in my calendar first before anything else. So, and I'm really sort of, I guard with special care my boundaries of my time.
Right. So what are your philosophies on self-care and healing? Because you've developed some really good tips for yourself that I think our viewers could benefit.
Well, I believe that healing is in stages of layers. It's not like you're cured, boom,
Yeah.
because at least not for me. The decline was very long. We're talking because they think I got it at age 10, so we're talking 25 years. And then I knew that the incline was going to be in stages and very slow, or at least in the beginning. I was hoping that it was going to be overnight. I remember I kept saying to myself, oh, next month I'll feel better. I'll be healed in a month. But I soon learned that that was a trap.
Right.
And that, so because healing happens in stages, I had to make changes in stages. Instead of change everything at once, it was like, okay, first I'm going to work on my sleep. Then, now I'm going to work on, eating the right foods. You add that layer. And then it was like, okay, I'm ready to work in some physical, being more active. Then it was like, okay, now I'm ready to work in some exercise. And then the first step was really, I'm going to build my team of people that are going to support me. So it was like adding in acupuncture, adding in working with the herbalist, working with the Lyme specialist, then like a traditional doctor. And there was like, then there was all these people that I had to sort of bring into the mix to be my team. So after the exercise, then it was like, okay, how can I build my routine? Then it was like, okay, how can I build in some fun? How can I build in nature time? How can I build in, community, friends? So, yeah, so I really believe in like baby stepping your way to good health.
Yeah, I mean, you had that compassion for yourself. And I think that's something that a lot of us with chronic issues have a tendency to neglect, that we overwhelm ourselves and we feel guilty when we're not at a certain place that we expect ourselves to be. But when we make that shift from the goal is no longer curing and everything's 100% perfect to just, I want to live, I want to design the best life possible for me, we begin to see that, oh, I don't have to do it. This is all in my mind. What I decide for myself is how it should be. That's it. I have the final say. So I really love your outlook on that, and the way that you really carefully, like just slowly, you were easy with yourself. You were very gentle with yourself. And that's a huge lesson that I think a lot of us can really take.
Well, I also learned that to compare is to despair. I also learned that when I would compare myself to people my age, or people in my life, or people around me, or friends or contemporaries, or even my grandparents, that would make me frustrated. So I had to sort of say, you know what? Okay, I'm Alexandra. I'm a bubble, and I'm unique, and I can't compare. I've got to work off of my own progress.
Right, exactly. We're the ones creating this for us, so we can create how the healing's going to look. We don't necessarily have to put that in anybody else's hands or expectations or how their experience is going for them. That we're all highly individualized when it comes to healing. So it's really awesome that you recognize that early on, and you really developed some great tips. And I have a few favorites, but I would love if you could share some of the specifics of your routine and what you created for yourself with self-care.
One of my favorites is you first. Is that you put yourself first. And I know I touched on this earlier in terms of scheduling, but really like putting yourself first, and then everything else comes after. That means work does not come first. That means, other people in my life don't come first. It sounds really, really kind of selfish, right? Our culture.
It sounds that way, but it's,
But I think when you're dealing with healing, you've got a long journey ahead of you. And the you first may not always be the case as you get better.
Right. And how did that transform your relationships that you had when you felt like, I know that there's this sense that typically it's considered selfish to take that time for yourself. How did people react to you, and how did you deal with those reactions?
It made me responsible for myself, and it also gave me permission to take more naps. It was so funny because I used to feel guilty napping during a work day because I was like, oh, I should be working right now. But there became a breaking point where I was like, you know what? My body is craving naps. So I'm just going to give myself permission to let myself nap whenever I feel so fit. And also when I travel or when I have stressful periods of time in my life, I try and buffer it with what I call integration weeks. Periods too. It applies to periods.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so let's say you're coming, you're going to be traveling and you're going through several time zones and you're coming home and it's going to be an adjustment. So instead of putting tons of things in your calendar that first say 10 days, why not let yourself have the time to integrate slowly. So make sure you have enough time to go to the grocery store and stock healthy food. Make sure you have enough time to get your apartment back in order. Make sure you have enough time to get good night's sleep, a walk in the park, seeing a good friend. I see so many people almost derail their whole vacation glow because they've scheduled stuff for the first day back.
Mm. And what's your opinion about how doing that can affect our health? How do you see the difference and the shifts in your life since you've been being more mindful?
Well, it's funny because one of the first things that the doctor had me do was do a spit test based on cortisol levels. And I was really shocked by what she told me because she was like, oh, your cortisol levels like really low in the morning and then they go really high at night, and that's why you're having trouble sleeping. And so when I started reading about cortisol, well, you learn that cortisol is about stress. And I was like, I don't understand it. I live by myself. I don't have any drama in my life. I don't go to a stressful workplace. I couldn't see what we call stress in my life. Consciously couldn't see it. But obviously my body was stressed out. So I think that we are incredibly sensitive human beings. It's just a matter of like how in tune are we to our system? How much do we feel it? Like we can be stressed but not feel it.
Exactly. And
so now I'm just super, super careful to schedule in what I call goddess days.
Oh, I love it.
And goddess days are, days when I go to Chelsea Piers and take a long swim and have some healthy food and bring a friend and read a magazine on the deck and look at the water. And, like the whole day is just meant for like goddess time.
I love it. I love it. And speaking of eating and food, that's also a really huge issue for those of us with chronic illness. What's your philosophy with the diet stuff and how do you listen to your body with that?
Well, I personally, I subscribe to the notion of lots of fruits and veggies, lots of healthy grains like quinoa if you can do it. I'm gluten-free, so that makes it, an added challenge. And I do eat meat. I'm O positive, so I'm never going to be completely meat-free. But I see meat as like a twice-a-week treat. It's almost like a dessert, not a main course.
Right.
I like these juice shops for their food, but I don't believe in eating 100% raw. I don't really believe in like doing lots of cleanses. I think you can stress your system more from doing cleanses, but I like those juice places, for treats or for smoothies,
Yeah.
So I do try and cram as much kale into my body as possible. And I believe in smaller meals, snacks. I never go anywhere without snacks because I find that as my blood sugar level drops, if I'm getting hungry, if I get to the point where I get too hungry, I get shaky and I get sick and it stresses out my system. So I always try and maintain this non-hungriness.
It sounds like you've created this beautiful relationship with your body, really. It's like you've completely understood it, you're listening to it, you're validating it, you're leading this beautiful life because of it. And really, it's a very hard thing for a lot of us to do, but I think that you've got some amazing tips for that. And I would love it if you would share. You've got a little something special going on to help people a little bit further with these self-care issues.
Yeah, so I'm in the process of writing a book, a self-care book. Even though I am a stylist, that's I really have felt like a little bit of a calling. I felt like I really want to share all this stuff that I've learned. So in preparation for that book, I've created a 7-day self-care challenge that is, 7 days of little tiny little morsels for me. Nothing overwhelming, but just a week of self-care attitude shifts.
And where can they find you?
Oh yeah, so the self-care challenge will be on my website at alexandrastylist.com/self-care challenge. And then of course, if you want to check out my work and all my books and programs, that would, you can do that too.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. And I just wanted to ask if there's one thing that our viewers could take away that's absolutely easy to do, that has really transformed your daily routine in terms of how you feel, what would it be?
Oh, two things: naps
Yes.
and yoga nidra. Yoga nidra, which is guided meditation by Jennifer Reese. I do that before bed, and it really helps me get even more of a deeper sleep.
Yeah, I love guided meditations. I try to wake up to them every morning and go to bed at night when you're in that kind of in-between state, about to fall off and about to wake up. I feel like it's programming my subconscious. I'm really getting it in there. So I'm a big fan of those.
I think the mind is very powerful. They say with yoga nidra, you don't even need to be consciously listening to it for it to sink, for the effects to, take into effect. Like, you don't even need to listen.
Right.
It just, your body just like absorbs it. So I put them on, even when I'm like too tired, I'm too tired. I'm like, put it on anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed after I listened to them for the first time, like a few years ago, I started doing it. It was like after about a month or 6 weeks, I'm noticing all the things that they kind of program as I'm going to sleep. I'm noticing more colors that they talk about. It's like, this stuff actually works. It totally works.
Yeah, and it's interesting because sometimes I will hear something new, and then there's favorite phrases I have that stay in my mind. Like one of my favorite ones is, "This would be a good time for a healing."
In that tone, exactly like that.
A good time for a healing.
And it's like whispering a little.
And I'm like, and I just melt. I go, oh.
Oh, I love that. It's like the inner wise self. Like, what do you got for me? That's something Chris Carr taught me, is to ask. And then you kind of start hearing these things as you start doing these meditations. And before you know it, you're guiding yourself without really needing to check in too much with anybody else. So That's what's cool about it.
And it's portable. I take my yoga nidra on my iPod. I take it on planes. I take it everywhere. Awesome. I mean, it's like, anytime you start freaking out.
Right. Well, thank you so much. These are awesome tips, and I'm sure everybody's going to be checking you out. And I'm really glad we got to speak today.
Me too. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. All right.
A lot of fun.
Bye. So you were just speaking about it's really important for those of us with chronic illness to be mindful of our energy and how we use it. And what would be your tip on how you've learned to listen to that?
Well, Jamie, I mean, energy is our biggest commodity, and it's the thing that I struggled with the most. That was my biggest symptom, was lack of energy. So when I started getting my energy back, little by little, in the beginning, there was literally like an hour or two of energy a day. So I would prioritize first thing in the morning. In my head, I'd say, okay, you only have this much energy. What's the one or two things that you need to do now? So it made me very conscious of putting my priorities first. But then when things came my direction, opportunities, you know, the collaborations, I no longer spend a lot of time exploring projects that to my gut don't feel that great. So I go with my gut most of the time these days to lead me, what do I spend my energy on? Because it's like I could easily, go down a path with someone, but it doesn't feel right and then it doesn't pan out. So it kind of sounds like a little like pessimistic, but really I don't think it is. I think it's just intuition.
Absolutely. You're listening to the energy you're feeling inside your body because,
I'm always, I mean, I say this to my mentees all the time. There will always be people in the world that want to use your services for free. There will, like, whether you're like, just starting out or you're big or you have lots of exposure, there will always be people that, A, don't value your time, don't value what you do in the same way that you value yourself.
right, right.
There's no lack of that. But when you start saying no to the universe, to things that don't work for you, it's amazing how the right type of clients show up. I mean, I have attracted it's wild. In the last year, I have attracted some of the most lovely and amazing perfect clients for me for what I've gone through, because I have clients that have gone through similar dietary changes. I literally have had a client who was exactly dairy free, gluten free, just like me. I
Yeah.
was like, this is amazing. We can have lunch together. This is great.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens. I think when we say yes to ourselves 100% of the time, then we get more of what we want. But when we misuse that energy because we have so precious little, we lower our vibe, we lower our own energy level, and we don't have the strength to do what we really want to do then. So it's definitely worth considering to check in with ourselves. Like, do we really want to do this? Is this something that I might feel tired a little later and then sick maybe potentially because of it? Or is it going to feed me? Is it going to feed me and I'm going to feel awake and expanded instead of low and tight and hunching over and feeling the need to kind of like lay down? So it's sort of listening to your body. When I start feeling like hunched over, or if I start feeling like I just kind of want to put my head down, I'm probably getting my energy sucked out and I need to replenish that.
And it's also about figuring out when are your best times during the day. I mean,
Yes.
I figured out what times of the day I'm have the most energy, and then there's times of the day towards the end of the day where you know I don't put things that are difficult or need my brain for.
Right.
Lately, what I've been doing, which is new, is I'll go and I'll take a quick 1 hour ballroom dance class at
Oh,
like
okay.
6:30, because it gets me off of my couch. But it's not that strenuous, and it's fun. It's social. It's musical.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're moving your body. You're getting yourself out of your head and into the energy of your body. It's just another way to learn how to connect with yourself and to hear yourself, really.
Yeah, and it's much better than sitting on the couch.
That's true. But for those days where you do kind of feel like that, what would you recommend is the best way to get through that to really conserve your energy and replenish yourself and the easiest way possible?
You mean days when you just want to stay in bed?
Yes, those days that still come
Well,
around sometimes.
yeah, those days, I say turn those days into goddess days and ask yourself, what would the goddess in you want? What would replenish you? What would feed your soul? What would, make your heart sing? Is it a bath? Is it a walk? Is it, talking to a trusted friend? Is it lighting a candle? Is it reading a book?
Right. And it's
Is
all
it is it sleeping in? Sometimes all you need is just some more sleep.
right. And I think when it comes to turning things around like that, we don't realize that maybe just doing that one micro movement will be enough to reset you. So it's not about necessarily going and having to sit in a sauna and detoxing for an hour and then taking, some alternative herbs and then going to get acupuncture and then going to the chiropractor. Like, you don't do all of that at once. It's maybe you just want to watch something really pleasant on TV and then relax and close your eyes and rest your body.
Yeah, I mean, there were days where going, like when I was just starting to move my body and exercise again, when going to the gym seemed exhausting because I would leave my house in the morning first thing and I'd feel exhausted. So what I did is I tricked myself. Not really, but I told myself, okay, Alexandra, if you get to the gym, just you physically going there, and you get there and you're too tired to work out, you totally have permission to just like take a shower and then come back home because that'll be more than you did yesterday. And then what would happen is I get there and I'm like, okay, well, I feel okay. Yeah, I check in and I'd be like, okay, if you just get on the treadmill, let's say you can only do 5 minutes, that's fine too. So I gave myself permission to do the minimum every time. And then what I would find is in that trick, I would actually do more because I would forget, because I took the pressure off.
Right.
It wasn't like you have to do this. It was like, no, you get there, you see how you feel, and then you see how it goes, and then you just do it till you feel you need to stop.
Right. Because that pressure weighs us down. It's heavy, and we need levity. We need to lighten the load for ourselves and lighten up the energy. And
Yeah.
sometimes just literally wiggling your toe in bed could be enough movement for the day to get that flowing. So,
Or stretching in bed.
exactly. So that
Or doing like a little cat curl in bed, you know?
or even just turning your neck from side to side and like rolling it around. I mean, sometimes that's all those little things can really make you feel like, okay, we're back. I'm back. So thank you for sharing those tips with us.